Hello, my name is Johnny. Welcome to another World War II 172 scale video. Today we're going to look at this very informative book, U.S. Light Tanks at War, 1941 to 45, featuring mainly the Stuart and the Scott and the Chaffe. And if you'd like, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, like, reply, and share. This is continuing on with my Armor at War series. I've done some of these books before. This is 7038. Got the Chaffe right here. That's on the main part of the cover. There's the Stuart. And then this one is the M8. There's one right there. We'll look at the models a little bit later. It's the back of the book. Let's see when this one is from. Front. It's got a nice color section in it. Plates. This one's 2001, so it's getting to be a while back now on that one. Got a little bit of information here, a couple pages of that. And then it goes into preparing for war, earlier attempts at light tanks. And then we're going to see the early Stuarts, which had a different turret than the model that I have here. A very good book. And then it'll show a couple of other interesting tanks too, including, I think there's a picture of the M24 Locust. So they start out here with combat in North Africa. So the British had them, the Stuarts, and they nicknamed them the Honey because they were mechanically reliable. And these have 37 millimeter and 30 caliber guns on them, machine guns. There's in British service, they had those smoke projectors. Look at how barren it is, just a strip of road. The desert campaign. So this is going to go all the way to 1945, and they'll also show there's a captured one that would be cool for war gamers. So this book is good for a modeler, diorama maker, war gamer, just a die-cast collector, and so forth. World War II enthusiast. So they captured some in Kasserine Pass and put it back into action. They only had a brief time, I believe Kasserine Pass, to the time to May of the capitulation was only a couple of months. February, March of 43, and then it was all over by the beginning of May. And then they'll show some in Pacific War. That's an unusual one where they changed it over, turretless command tank. And look at that mesh over the top. There's some other neat pictures towards the end in here too of non-standard. Looks cool with the palm trees. So fighting with the Marines and with the Army. There's a bit of camouflage, impromptu. And we're going to get to, they'll probably show a little bit of Italy, and of course Normandy, D-Day, into France, into the Battle of the Bulge, and then finally into Germany. Here's Italian theater, some pictures. Look at it, barely fits on the little bridging they put in there. So originally it was like the M3 light tank, and then there was the M5, the improved version. Like I said, I'll show the models a little bit at the end. I've done in-depth looks at them. There's a M8 Scott that has a 75 millimeter howitzer on it. And they had did what they call it the REC, the reconnaissance, where they removed the turrets because they were too high and they didn't feel they needed the gun, and that it was more important just to be low silhouette. There's a picture of the Scott with its short 75 howitzer firing, different kinds of track on some of these. Did not have priority, but they did get some of the M24 Chaffe. Here it is, look, it's almost to the very end here, April 45. So if you're wargaming, you can use some Chaffes in the Italian campaign after the Po River, towards the end. There's Hungarian Army has them. Red Army was shipped. Yeah, so they had them on the Eastern Front. So the Russians had them, and then sometimes Lend-Lease items for the Russians, Soviet Russians, would be captured by the Germans, and they'd be using them. So that's you could have an interesting battle between an American and British tank, but with German and Russian forces. So that's unusual, kind of cool. The earlier types. This was the neat desert camouflage there, 41. This one's really neat, unusual. They say that one's in 1942. That one's kind of cool with the big yellow and the star, Tunisia. This one has nice paint. This is when it was on display in Morocco. They could have used that sort of paint scheme in Sicily, the invasion of Sicily, which was right before the invasion of Italy. We're in India. This is their nice idea for extras, all the baggage and so forth on here. This, there's C-34. So if you wanted to fix this one up, let's see, did they get that? Numbering is a little different, but they got the name Carol and C-34. So that one is, which one is this one? So this one's specific, France, July 1944. Got that one. That's pretty cool that, pretty cool that it's the exact same. There's the motor carriage, and that's the hedge choppers, the Cullen hedgerow, a rhino to get through the hedgerow in June, July in Normandy. And this is the odd little tank, the M22 Locust. I did a video of that. I have that in 172. Here it is there. And then we've got, look at that one in a second, another nice Chaffe there in Italy, March. And then look at this, British had helped the Yugoslavians out, and they had captured some German equipment, so the Yugoslavs took off the turret, and that's a PAK 40, a 75 millimeter L48 gun, so that would be quite effective. So that's something very unusual there. And that's the Communist Red Star for the forces in Yugoslavia. There was partisan fighting all throughout that war. So something different. And I think they're going to show it. There's another one with like a flak Verling 20 millimeter. For those still watching, you'll see that coming up. That one's neat with a little bit of camouflage. All things considered, I would have, if I was an American soldier, would have liked to fight in Europe and not in the Pacific Islands. A little cover on that. A little bit of view on the inside. Side pan. Yeah, originally, when I was much younger, I wasn't aware of the M8 Scott, the 75mm howitzer. I had become aware about the Stuart and then the Chaffe, but this didn't come into my general knowledge until later. There's another one that's changed, converted. Chartless command vehicle. It's kind of cool. Let's get to some of the later pages. Yeah, see, that's the C-34 again. A famous picture. Tank. When you go through these books, there's always a lot to see, and like I said, if you're a modeler or diorama maker, you've got tons of inspiration in just one of these books. As I said, I'll leave a link to another one. This is good, cool with all the sandbags they were doing it. They thought that was going to help against Panzerfaust anti-tank rockets. There's a closer look at one of the Cullen hedgerow devices, the prongs. They got a neat picture coming up towards the end with the Stuart by Jag Tiger. Here's the inside. So as you can see, the other ones are regular tanks, and then this is they technically call that a gun or carriage, and then they got the open top like the tank destroyers, so it's a lot more vulnerable to shrapnel and infantry and so forth. There's a neat one with all the logs going across and the sandbags. That's a different style of the prongs right there. I have some of the things here. This was cool. The officers of this section had some converted, and this is for high ranking. And then just got a big 50 cal on there, so that would be a neat conversion to do. Look at that. You are there. A very nice shot. There's with the netting over. There's a recovered vehicle that's based on the Grant and the Lee. Trying to recover that one. Gonna have some battle bowls where sometimes they just use sheets. This was an interesting picture here. It was overrun, and these were all lost. A Panzer division used the wrecks for static defense in January, being forced to retreat. So I wonder how they all were knocked out in that particular array. There's the tanker helmet. See with those holes in the helmet for aeration. There's one passing a wrecked Panther. There they're checking out the Chaffe. They had to bring that around, so they didn't get really used to November, December, and they had to show them to the new troops and explain that yes, this is an American vehicle. So the Chaffe had the same sort of size gun, the 75mm, as the basic Sherman, instead of the 37s that had a lot more firepower. And of course they used the Chaffe in Korean War also. There's the cover shot right there. In February in 45 in Belgium, moving into Germany. This is the one. Look at how cool this would be. With the folks still here. This one is following the capture of a German arsenal. In November, the workshop of the Yugoslav Tank Brigade re-equipped several vehicles, including this one, the anti-grav, and we already saw the one with the pack. So it's got the flak Verling, and look at the paint job, as I call it, the camouflage. Now that would be a cool conversion to make for a diorama especially. This is the M22 airborne Locust tank. Only a few of those were used. Crossing the Rhine, loading it into a Hamel car. Transport used by the British. And they're transporting across the Rhine there. Some Chaffes. There they are in Germany. There's another one. Look at that. Let's go with all of the sandbags and the netting camouflage type over it all. And look at it's got a big speaker trying to get German towns to surrender. Towards the end there, they'd hang out a white flag, and they supposedly know that that there wasn't going to be battle. Sometimes there was people that did that, and then there was still fighting. Look at this. This was unusual too. This is the little pack 37 millimeter. But towards the end, they were probably using anything and everything. So there it is. You could use this in a late war scenario. Not much punch, but if you had a side shot on a Chaffe, doesn't have much armor, the 37 might be able to knock that out. Could certainly hit the track and so forth and so forth. You could probably do a little bit of damage with that. And here's the picture with David and Goliath. Looking at the Ag Tiger and Stuart's going by, March of 45. Caught on the other side of the Rhine, and there's no way they could have transported it. And then the last couple pictures here is showing some, passing some bird panthers. Can't really make them out, but I assume they're correct in their caption here. Look at all the stuff on this Chaffe. And then on that big 50 cal up there. Czechoslovakia, blocking the road. The American troops got that far, meeting the Russians there. And then even on the Swiss border, some guards. So let's look at that. Take a quick look at these. Like I said, I have individual... there's the cutter. Videos covering these vehicles. There's the neat Chaffe, very cool. If you've ever seen the 1965 Battle of the Bulge, they used, I think, the Walker Bulldog tank for the King Tiger, and they used these as the main battle tank in that movie for the Americans. Not accurate at all, but a fun movie with lots of folks like the tanker, Telly Savalas, Charles Bronson is in it, Henry Fonda, a real fun guys movie from the 60s on World War II. Let's take a look at Mr. Scott. He's got the big 50 cal up here. There's one there. Look at how big that thing is. Look at it. This is like longer than the 37 millimeter. And then you put a crew on there. So these were nicely done. Die cast in plastic. This one's heavy. This one's all die cast. I believe this one was Hobby Master. All right, so that was a look at this book. Link here to another one. If you enjoyed this and you're so inclined, you could leave a super thanks. Much appreciated. Be lots more World War II 172 scale videos to come. Thanks for watching.